Make the choices that make you nervous. If you make the choice that's the easy way out, that wasn't the big vision or big choice to make. That's what Eileen Burbage, the partner of Passion Capital, said. And you're going to find out what that has to do with our topic today. So hi y'all, thanks so much for joining me. Less than 15 minutes, I'll be sharing with you what bad habits are, and then about 4 things to help you with breaking those bad habits. Please like and share this video if you get value from it, and if you're listening to it on the podcast, thank you so very much for your support on there. You could drop a like in there as well. I'm Dr. P, and I'm a strategic business coach. I've been a school psychologist for about 10 years in K-12 schools, served on professional organization committees, and taught more than 10 online psychology classes. So I'm sure you've heard many people and even business owners talk about their habits. Some of them might talk about their good habits. Some of them might talk about their bad habits. Sometimes you probably can even point them out in others, right? Maybe, tell yourself, hey, I could see what their bad habits are, because you can point them out in others. And you can probably spot those procrastinators, those overspenders that are out there. But, it's easier to point out somebody else's bad habits than it is for us to even realize our own bad habits. So that's why in this video, I'll be sharing with you what bad habits are and give you some tips on how you can go about breaking those bad habits so that you can experience that success that you want, that you desire for your business. So, are there any procrastinators, by the way, or overspenders, or even those who use stereotypes to make decisions in their business that come to mind as you're watching this or listening to this? Do you think that's you who's the overspender or who's the procrastinator? Or are you starting to wonder if you're using stereotypes to make decisions in your business, right? Because for business owners, these can be some examples of some bad habits that we have that are hurting our businesses, right? So just think about those things, because as we go through this, it's going to make a little bit more sense to you. And like I said, have some tips at the end for how you can break those bad habits. So as you join, you can say hi and where you're joining from, even if you're listening to this on the replay. Really appreciate, learning about who is supporting us here. So for me, when I look back on the classes that I've taken, especially in my graduate courses, I remember having to learn about my good habits as well as my bad habits. Because when I was able to identify those 2 things, it really helped me to get better at note-taking, with writing assignments, collaborating with group members, and it even also helped me with studying for exams, right? Because when you can identify those good and those bad habits, it really makes a huge difference. But here's the thing though, it wasn't easy to be able to identify what my good habits were or what my bad habits were, and then when you do identify the bad ones, it is not easy to let them go, because those are comfortable for us, right? To us, we think it makes life easier, but it really isn't making life easier. Hi on Facebook, thanks for joining. So when you're looking at identifying your good habits and your bad habits, just be prepared for what you're going to be finding, right? And just know, if you want to change those bad habits, there's going to come a point in time when you actually have to change those bad habits, and it's not going to be easy. Another thing is, while I was working as a school psychologist, I could so understand a whole lot better why some of my co-workers, as they were now finding out, their good habits and bad habits, and when they wanted to stop them, why they were feeling so stressed out. Because I remember how I felt when I was going to graduate school, right? And the thing is, my co-workers that I was working with, they wanted to stop them so that they could, those bad habits, so they could become more productive and more effective in their roles. And I also remember speaking with parents and students about wanting to stop bad habits. Because I've been in several meetings where parents would say to their child, you want to stop that now, because if you don't, you're going to continue, and they might even give an example of a family member that they knew from when they were growing up, and that bad habit, and how that bad habit continue to negatively impact their lives, right? And you know, when you can actually see an example, it really makes it hit home a lot harder, you know, the positive and the negative impact of certain habits that we have. So it was really good to hear when parents shared that with their children. And even for some of my coworkers, they were hearing these things and they were like, oh yeah, for them, it related to something in their life, and also reminded them of something they were dealing with their own children, right? So the good habits and the bad habits, you can identify them at any age, right? And they might even change over time. Who knows, depending on the type of habits that you are forming, right? And we want to keep the good habits, and we want to really minimize those bad habits. But at the end of the day, each one of us have good habits and we have bad habits that are a part of our everyday lives. And how we go about changing it is going to be different for each and every one of us. And how we maintain that change is going to be a different process, right? Not saying it's impossible. I'm saying that it's just going to be different. So how I give up my bad habit might not be the way how you give up yours, or the business owner that you know how they give up their bad habit is not going to be the same. Just like anything else that we deal with in business, right? What works for me might not work for you, might not work for the other business owner that you know. But that doesn't mean that it can't work. You just have to find your own rhythm for getting that improvement that you're looking for. So yeah, it can be easier to stick with our bad habits because that's part of our comfort zone, is what we know. But think about this. When you know your bad habit, right? Think about it. Is it helping you with moving forward? Or are you stuck in the same position that you have been in for the last 6 months, for the last year, for the last 2 years? That's something to really consider. Because yeah, your bad habit is your comfort zone, but how is that truly helping you and your business with moving forward? So why are we holding on to bad habits if they're not helping us? Just a question for you to think about there. So you want to get out of that comfort zone, right? So remember that quote I said at the beginning, make the choices that make you nervous. If you made the choice, that's the easy way out. That wasn't the big version or big choice to me. That was what Eileen Burbage, partner of Passion Capital, said, right? And as business owners, this quote is talking about risk and taking risks. It doesn't matter if you're independent business owner, a small business owner, a micro business owner, or an independent franchise owner. We all have to take risks at some point in time for the benefit and for the sake and the success of our businesses. And what that risk looks like differs. But the point is, we have to take a risk at some point in time. And taking that risk, it could include stopping those bad habits that we have because they're not helping us to reach our goals, right? So as you're listening to this and thinking about your bad habits, you might feel your heart start to race and maybe even getting some sweaty palms because you're like, oh my gosh, you're wanting me to stop what? Oh my gosh, that's what's helping me with getting through. But again, is it really helping you? Because when you look at the fact that you keep holding on to this bad habit and you look at the fact you're not reaching your goals, then something has to give. And I want to see you reach your goals, so don't give up on your goal. You just have to give up on what is stopping you from reaching that goal, which could very well be your bad habit that you have, right? So just stay calm. I'm not saying that you got to stop it right now this second, but it's easier said than done, regardless, right? You do have to get yourself in that mind frame for stopping that bad habit. For some people, working with a business coach can help them with getting through this difficult moment of breaking that bad habit and getting over it. So that could be something that you can consider. So are you still with me? Like I said, not asking you to stop right now this second. So if you're still with me, that is great. Thanks so much for being here and for listening on the podcast if you're listening to this replay on the podcast. So what are bad habits anyways? The Free Dictionary defines a bad habit as a pattern behavior regarded as detrimental to one's physical or mental health, which is often linked to a lack of self-control. The Positive Psychology People's website has an article by Stuart Dixon, and he defined a bad habit as a negative behavior pattern. So there are some similarities in those two definitions, because one talks about, a pattern of behavior that is detrimental to one's physical or mental health, which is often linked to a lack of self-control. And then the other one talks about negative behavior patterns. So you do hear that negativity coming through both of these definitions, right? So now that we're on the same page about what a bad habit is, now let's talk about the connection between those bad habits and how it's impacting your business. Because if you're not seeing that connection yet, don't worry. I'm here to share with you how you can realize that connection so that you can stop that bad habit. So some of the bad habits that we might have as business owners, I already mentioned them before. It's that procrastination and maybe even some overspending. I'm talking about the fact that you might know there are things that you have to be doing in your business, but for some reason you still ain't doing them. Why is that? You could sit and you can write the list from now to, for the next hour, but yet 2 hours later you haven't started to do anything on that list because you can think of all the reasons why you shouldn't be doing the things on that list, even though that list has on the things you're supposed to be doing. So procrastination can be a bad habit for business owners. Then there's also overspending. And when I'm saying overspending, I'm talking about the fact that you might be online right now. You might be on your computer and on your phone, or you might just be on your phone and you see something pop up and you're like, ooh, that looks great. That looks like a great product or service I could use for my business. And somehow you figure out some reason why you should be using it. Then you go ahead and you spend money on it. Or somebody in your network said, hey, I found out about blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh my gosh, that sounds so amazing. So then you go and you buy that too. So here it is. You are finding money to spend on all of these things, but yet you're not spending the money on things that are truly beneficial to you, right? And then when you look at how much money you're bringing into your business and how much money you're spending so much and you're not getting anything in return because you're really just overspending, right? So those are two examples of bad habits. Another example is making decisions based on our stereotypes, right? So all of us have biases and stereotypes. Whether or not you're aware of them, that's something that you have to really come to terms with, because we need to be aware of our biases and stereotypes. And even if we are, sometimes we can still be actively making decisions based on those stereotypes. Then other times we can be making decisions and not realizing we're using our stereotypes to make those decisions. And I'm talking about decisions relating to team members that you bring on board, how you train your team members to help them to grow, vendors that you do business with, who you invite to be a part of your network. So you can be using your own biases and stereotypes to make those type of decisions. So those things can be negatively impacting your business. Because at the end of the day, you want a business made up of people who are exactly like you. Because if that's the case, then that means there's no diversity in your problem solving, and that can negatively impact your business. This is why being aware of your stereotypes can help you. So again, those are 3 examples of some bad habits that we can have as business owners that can be negatively impacting our businesses. So when you know these bad habits, now that you know your bad habits, how can you stop them, right? Because that's something I said I was going to share with you. And I got 4 things that you could consider. The first one is think about what happens that leads up to you even starting to engage in that negative habit that you have. Because when you do this, you're in a better position to identify what that trigger is, what that cue is that gets you into motion for doing that bad habit or that negative habit, right? So that awareness does help you, because then you can also replace that bad habit with a positive habit, right? But it's going to be a new habit, so it might take a while to really, get into developing a pattern of those positive behaviors. Which brings me to my second thing. You can replace your negative habit with a positive habit. And then when you do that, you can give yourself a reward for engaging in that new positive habit so that you can help yourself to really start to develop the habit over time, right? But this positive habit has to be bigger, than the negative habit that you had before, because the brain needs it to be bigger and better so that you can stick with it. Because that's the thing, we want to stick with it. We want to get you away from your comfort zone of that negative habit and into a new comfort zone with a positive habit. The third one is you can use visualization. Whenever you feel tempted to use, that bad habit that you had. So I do have a training video on visualization that you can check out in my video library here on Facebook and also on YouTube, so that you can learn more about how you can use visualization to help you stop that bad habit and develop positive habits now. And then the fourth one is when you engage in that bad habit, look at what you're getting in return. So think about that procrastination. When you sit down there and procrastinate, are you getting anything done off of your list of things? Are you getting anywhere closer to your goals? What about overspending? When you're engaging in that bad habit of overspending, how much money do you have left to actually spend on the things that you actually need to be spending, right? And how about making decisions based on some stereotypes? If those decisions are landing your business into a negative direction, then what are you getting when you engage in that negative action, right? So think about what you're getting when you engage in that bad habit, because that's going to give you a better idea and give you an awareness of what happens whenever you engage in that bad habit. And hopefully can be used as some motivation to get you moving into the right direction. So hope you hung in there with me to this point. And remember that each of us have positive and negative habits that we engage in, right? And it's up to us how we're going to stop our negative habits. And remember, stopping a negative habit doesn't happen in a split second. But if you really want your business to survive, you have to become aware of what your bad habits are. And you need to stop those bad habits and engage in positive habits to replace those bad ones, so that you can continue to truly make some progress towards your goals that you have for your business. So I'm Dr. Priscilla Kuser with Priscilla Kuser Consulting Solutions. Remember, solutions plus actions equals results. Thank y'all so much for joining me.